All right. This week on the podcast, I'm joined by Kayla Capponi. Kayla is the owner of Kayla's Creations. She focuses on wedding planning, event planning, corporate events, all that stuff. Just had a great half-hour conversation with her about everything that she does, some of the things that she's learned. She has some great advice at the end about having kids as a small business owner. So she's full of a bunch of energy. Really enjoyed our conversation. Think you will too, if you're into that sort of thing. This is the Randy.forcier podcast. If you can do me a favor, subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. If you could like the video, if you're also on YouTube, that'd be great as well. Thanks so much for the support. Thanks for always checking out the episodes. Here's Kayla. All right, I am joined by Kayla from Kayla's Creations. How you doing, Kayla?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you. We were talking offline. This was supposed to be done a few days ago, had some computer issues. We fought through it. Yeah, we made it happen. So thanks for being so flexible.
Absolutely. Here we are, and I'm so thankful.
Yeah, definitely. Excited to hear about your business. You're in wedding and event planning.
Yep.
Before we get to all that stuff, I want to learn a little bit more about you. What's your background? Where you're from? All that stuff.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Peru, Maine, so in
Mhm.
Western Maine. Grew up in a small town, still here, living in Peru, Maine, and I worked kind of desk jobs here and there on and off. I worked at the local mill, kind of handling their HR and doing some of their events. And then really during COVID, so had laid off, and I just kind of went full force and did my
Mhm.
business, 100%. And here we are, and still going strong. And
It's awesome.
yeah,
What a wild time to start this kind of business. I mean, because
I know.
you do more than weddings, and we'll get into everything you did. But like back then, it was weird to have an event, right?
It
Like,
was weird to have an event, and a lot of people got laid off, and so I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? Like, where am I at now? Like, this is a weird time to go find a job to go work when everyone's in lockdown. So I'm like,
Mhm.
well, what can I do? And I was like, I'm just gonna try to go full force with my business, and it really took off because people were starting to plan like, okay, if we're gonna be locked down for a year, I need to start planning for my events when that lets up. And so it was
Mhm.
just like it was kind of a crazy time, but it really sped off, and that's kind of when I went, 100% in, and it worked.
It's awesome. That's it's kind of like a leap of faith decision. It sounds like just going for it. But is it because you've always liked, like, did you plan events for your family or your kids, or was there something about that specific thing that you
Yeah,
were drawn to?
so this is my like 11th year doing event planning,
Oh.
and it was in the first part my brother does video, and so he was doing some videos for events and weddings, and I had did some events for my friends and family like you had said. And he's like, why don't we just team up? Like, it's easy, like we're brother and sister. I'll do the video, you do the events. And I'm like, all right. And we were fresh out of school, and I'm like, hey, let's do it.
Mhm.
So I did a few, and I'm like, I really, really like this. But it was always, it's a little scary starting your own business. And it's like, it can be busy, it can be slow. And just like wanting to make sure that I can provide and obviously pay my bills. So I was like
Totally.
really nervous, back at that, when I was in my early 20s, to be like, okay, I'm just gonna, run my own business, and hopefully it works with, I don't want to say little skill, but pretty, pretty minimal
Yeah.
skill and experience. So I always kind of had a full-time job and did it on the side, and not,
Yeah.
100%. So over the years, as you get experience, and I'm like, hey, this is a good time. I'm quite a few years into doing this, and I'm feeling confident that I can
Yeah.
make this my business. So that's kind of when I made that transition.
So I do want to go through all the different things that you're involved in planning, but is wedding planning your biggest thing, or is that not your biggest thing?
Yeah, I would say that is like the number one,
Mhm.
biggest thing that I do. But yeah, I do other things, but I would say that's pretty high on the top of what I do most frequently.
Do people ever ask you, like, well, why wouldn't I just work with the wedding planner that I have at the venue that I'm getting married at? Like, you're able to basically work anywhere, but is that something you find you're competing with?
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of, questions and miscommunication about venues having planners and what do they do versus your own coordinator. And I think,
Mhm.
after, 11 years, I can kind of articulate that a little bit for couples. And really, a lot of times venues have coordinators or planners, or sometimes they call them managers. And what they're really there to kind of focus on is the venue. So they're answering questions that, where's the bathroom? Where's the cords, where's the tables and chairs, and they're not specifically working for the couple. So they're
Yeah.
kind of working for the venue and making sure that the venue's set and, the times are okay and the lights need to be adjusted and things like that. But when they hire a coordinator on the outside, such as myself, they're getting like, I'm here for you. I'm helping you from A to B all the
Yeah.
way to the very end. So there's a difference, and I think it's great when they have a venue coordinator plus myself, because you can work together and really have an all inclusive team. That because there's some venues that I go to that I've never been to that I'm not familiar with. So having
Yeah.
that point person also helps me during the day and of the process. So I think it's really important when people see a venue coordinator, let me ask some follow-up questions to make sure it's what I'm looking for
Yeah.
and what I need.
Yeah, you can definitely tell you've talked about that before, because that makes sense. Like, they're focusing on the venue specific things, but yeah, I'm sure venue places have a vendors list and all that stuff. But I think what you're able to do is just a little bit more all encompassing.
Exactly.
So I guess that makes sense. Um, what are some of the things that you learned? Like, I guess tips for brides, or what are the main things that you tell people early on in the process that you've learned?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. Early on is a key word there, because
Yeah.
in the wedding business, there things get booked up very quickly, and people say, "Oh, I've got time. I've got a year." And really what I tell people is a lot of vendors are booking out a year or two, even plus beyond
Mhm.
that. So I don't want people to rush the engagement process. And there's people that have been engaged for 5, 6, 7 years. And
Oh, yeah.
of course that's totally fine. But if you're ready to actually start planning and you're ready to go, it's really time is of the essence, because vendors and Maine is not, a large state. There's a lot of vendors in there, but it's not huge like, say,
Yeah.
Massachusetts per se, where there's, tons of vendors. So if you're going to try to stay local and use local vendors, they get booked up. And a lot of times, we're all pretty small business owners. We only have a handful of people working with us. So we can't take on 10 weddings a weekend. A lot of us can
Definitely.
only do two or three at max. And so it gets booked quickly. So I think, when couples come to me, I say, all right, let's, try to do this in a timely manner, because I want to get what you want and who you want. That's like my number one thing is time, and not trying to rush the process, but being mindful that if you don't start planning, you might not get what you're hoping for, and that
Yeah,
happens a lot.
definitely. So I have some good friends that are in the DJ business,
Yeah,
photography business as well, and it's obviously everyone in 2020 like took a hit, lost probably a bunch of business, but it really seems like they kind of made up for it the past few years, and probably were more booked than they want to. Hopefully things
exactly.
normalize moving
Yep.
forward. Um, Actually, some of them actually have said that are experiencing a little bit of a lull at certain points in this season,
Yep.
because there was such a rush over the past few years to people to catch up that, like, yeah, even one of my friends that's a DJ and he has many, many DJs on his team is like, yeah, there's these windows of time this summer that we just don't have anything booked. And he explained it away as a little bit of a bounce back from what has happened in the past few years.
I think that's totally true. And I was actually just having a conversation with a good friend of mine who owns a venue. And we were having the same conversation that, last year and the year before, I was working even midweek weddings, like Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday. Like, it was crazy. I was working Thursday, Friday, like every day of the week. And it was because there was so much bounce back, like you said, from COVID, and people, that were supposed to get married for that year and then the years following had to push back
Mhm.
even further. So it's like, we're 4 years out, 4 or 5 years out, and it's still kind of the catch up. And now it's kind of, we are experiencing this lull, and it's kind of crazy because we were all so booked and we were
I
like
know.
begging for help, and like we're going to take everything we can get, because we want to make sure that people are able to have their days and experience what they want. But again, there was only so much of us to go
Mhm.
around. But people, I was, like I said, I was doing midweek weddings, which is not a typical
Yeah.
typical thing, but people were taking whatever they could get. So there is
Yeah.
kind of a lull, I think, in the wedding business right now. And I think after Christmas and Valentine's Day coming up, it's kind of the prime engagement season. So things will start picking up a little bit. But I definitely think it's slower than the
Yeah.
past handful of years that we were
Totally.
experiencing.
Yeah. That echoes what he would say too. And I know that now is was a big wedding show time of year. Do you go to wedding
Yep.
shows?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. We are coming off the holidays, New Year's. Those are big engagement
Exactly.
times. Like, is Valentine's Day a big engagement time? I
Yep.
don't know if people would,
It
you know, I mean, I
definitely
guess it would make
is.
sense, but I wasn't sure if that's like overdone. People try to avoid it, but
I think people are still doing it because every
yeah,
year it's like always, I get quite a few that on Valentine's Day. So it's definitely, this week I have, and I do plan some like proposals with people. So
oh,
I have some
nice.
of those planned. So that's kind of like a new, I'd say, trend. People are planning these elaborate proposals and they're hiring planners to help them execute it. So that's kind of fun. So that I get a few of those this week.
Wow, that is awesome. I'm going to get back to that in a second because I think that's very
Yeah.
cool. I wasn't expecting to hear you say that, but about the wedding process, is the venue the first thing that people should do? Like
I
that?
would say that's what I usually suggest. I mean, you sometimes they come to me before they even get a venue, which is,
Mhm.
that's perfectly fine. But I usually tell people the venue really is important because when you're reaching out to other vendors, they're going to ask, well, where's your venue? So I can calculate, travel costs. How long is it going to take me? How many people do I need to go set up? Or all
Yeah.
those logistics really boils down to location and address and specifics. So they'll give you like a rough quote, but if we're really kind of digging deep into the process, they really need like a venue and an address.
hmm What's the main pieces besides that to a wedding? So is it just like DJ, caterer, videographer, photographer, wedding officiant? Are those like the main things? Is there more to
Yep,
it?
floral,
Oh,
hair and
yeah.
makeup, cake or dessert. So those are kind of in rentals and like decor, but those are I usually have a list that I provide people, and those are I would say like a DJ, photographer, catering, and rentals are like really the ones that
Yeah.
are booked solid. The other ones, not saying that they're not, but there's a lot more of them. But usually people are looking for a specific type of food. They're
Mhm.
wanting a specific style of DJ. They want a certain type of photography. So that's what they're looking for. We got to find those first because there might not be, 10 DJs that can do party style music or whatever they're looking for. So it's like I
Yeah.
try to dig deep into the ones that are important to the couples first.
And you have all your resources and people that you're happy to refer those people. It's probably very easy for you to refer all those people.
Absolutely. And that's kind of one thing that I think that it's really important when people hire planners. Like I've been doing it for I think this is my 12th year. And so
Mhm.
I have lots of friends, a lot of my best friends work in the wedding world. And
Yeah, I
so
bet.
it's super easy for me to text them and be like, "Hey, do you have, June 15th open? This is what we're looking for." And it streamlines that process a lot because what people I'd say find frustrating and what's time consuming is okay, I got to research all the vendors and then you got to send an email. And I know myself, I try to be very prompt, but we're busy as wedding vendors and sometimes it takes a week or so for a response. So then you have like 20 emails out and then you're getting all these responses and people are like, "Oh my gosh, this is too much for me to handle. I can't even keep track of that." So it's very helpful for a planner because I have like a specific spreadsheet and then like I said, I know most of the vendors so I can like personally reach out to them, whether it's text or call or Facebook or however, that clients don't necessarily have access to them in those ways. And
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, you got an answer within an hour, and I got a quote for them in 2 hours." And it just helps and it makes them feel more comfortable because it is a very time consuming and frustrating and lots of emotions come out in the process because it's overwhelming. So I think that that's super helpful for couples.
I wouldn't want you to elaborate too much, but I imagine you've had some nightmare scenarios with people, or has everything always run pretty smoothly?
I mean, it's 50-50 really because you never know. There's a lot that goes into planning a wedding just because, you have 10, 15, 20 vendors, you have friends, you have family, you have the bridal party, you have the venue, people that work at the venue, and you have all of these moving parts and it's not all going to ever work perfectly. There's
Mhm.
very rarely times that it's like, wow, nothing happened that day, but there's always something that comes up. And that's one reason why it is important to have a wedding planner because if those things do come up during the day, they're going to go to the couple or the parents or the brother and sister. And it just adds, it adds
Yeah.
stress and tension onto the day. And I don't ever want that for couples. Like, I want them to be able to be present, be with their friends and their family, and be able to enjoy it, not being bombarded with, oh, you're missing 10 tables. We don't have an
Totally.
extension cord, the right color napkins didn't get delivered, and then they're going to have to deal with that the whole
Mhm.
day because there's nobody else to go to. So a planner really is important because they're that person that can troubleshoot all of that and they can just, enjoy their day like they're supposed to.
That seems like it's worth it just for that reason, just for like that
Exactly.
insurance that the day goes smoothly.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously all the stuff that goes into it ahead of time is nice, but like, yeah, the last thing you want to do is just be fielding questions on table situations as the bride. I mean, you really want it, like you said, being present. I feel like in life it's so crazy. It's just more important than ever to be present, never mind on your actual wedding day. So,
Exactly.
um,
I think that's so true. And I think the older that I've gotten, like you have said, just like in my personal life, professional life, and just day to day, like being present is something I think as a society, it's just so busy for all of us
mhm,
all the time. And people will look back on their wedding day and they'll be like, I don't even remember that happening. I don't even remember seeing so and so. And it makes me sad because like this is supposed to be one of the happiest days of your lives. And it ended up being so stressful, or it ended up in tears, or it was just family dynamics, and there's nobody there to like intercept all of that. And that's really my goal. Like, yes, this is my business and my job, but most importantly, I want people to be able to enjoy their day, and their friends and family to also, and their children or whoever else is there, is to be able to also enjoy it with them, and they can look back and say, yeah, that was one of the best days of my
yeah,
life. And I remember, and I was there to sit back and watch it, and I didn't have to be stressed. And all of the little fires that had to be put out, they have no idea, because myself and my team, or whoever the vendors I'm working with, we just handle it for them. So
mhm.
they don't even know that some of the stuff comes up.
That's awesome. Now, what's
Yeah.
your geography? I know you do some travel type stuff, which I want to talk about, but like as far as more normal type weddings, is there a certain radius from where you live that you go?
Yeah, so again, like you said, I will travel anywhere
Mhm.
in the world for people want to have me, but
Just
I
putting
would
that
say
out
my
there.
yeah, right. That was my goal for this year, is to do some more destination type things.
Yeah.
But typically I focus a lot on Maine, New Hampshire. I will get some in like Massachusetts. I have one in Vermont next year. So New England, but typically it's like Maine and New Hampshire that I
Mhm.
do the majority of my business in.
Yeah. I mean, it really isn't like what you're doing is regardless of the location, really. I mean, yes, you know less vendors the further away you get from your home base,
Right.
but it's still like the same things. I'm sure you have
Exactly.
checklists that you operate off of and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
guess it really doesn't matter. But I
Yeah,
guess
and
people just.
I was, just talking to another wedding vendor, is, in New England, a lot of us vendors consider New England our home base. So a
Mhm,
lot of vendors that are based in Maine or New Hampshire or Massachusetts, we're like, oh yeah, Massachusetts vendors come to Maine all the time, and we go to
mhm.
Massachusetts, and same with like New Hampshire and even Vermont, is, they don't consider that like a huge travel, because it's just like it's
Yeah.
New
It's just,
England, and it's just like the vibe that we have. So I think a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, that's a long ways, and we're all like, oh my god, we can hop in the car and be there in 3 hours, and it's nothing,
which is
because
nothing.
that's just part of living in New England. So I think that
Yeah.
is nice when people get married in the New England states, because a lot of vendors serve the entire encompass of New England.
Mhm. So have you done a lot of like island weddings, or this really is something that you're just trying to kind of add to your overall
Yeah,
portfolio?
I'm
You do
kind
it
of trying
because
to add to that. I've
okay.
done some like styled shoots and like mock
Mhm,
weddings, but I think it would be something that I've done a couple for friends and things like that. But I'm
mhm.
trying to add, not like, there are some that specifically do destination. Like, I don't want to do that. I still want to be in my hometown and in my states, but I think it would be fun to add a couple of those during the year, and just,
Yeah.
expand my business and get knowledgeable and learn new things and grow. So
Mhm.
that's kind of, what was a few of my goals this year.
I love it. I hope next time we connect, you got something fun going someplace,
Thank you. I appreciate
going
that.
to going to Dubai or going to Hawaii or
Yeah,
something
right?
something cool. Um, the thing about the event business is there's so much more than just weddings. I mean, my mind goes to weddings first. Probably most people's do, but there are other things that you plan as well.
Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely. And there's any events, that I will plan, but a lot of the other big ones are, I do a lot of baby showers, bridal showers,
Mhm,
anniversary parties, birthday parties, things like that. I would say, like, again, weddings are the most popular ones, but I
mhm,
also do a lot of corporate events. So, like around the holidays, doing holiday parties, if they have celebrations, like milestones. Like last year, I did like an 85th milestone for the bank. So
mhm.
anything like that, because a lot of corporate events, they're like, it is a lot, and they're busy with their own jobs, so they hire planners to just kind of take care of all of that. So I also do a lot of corporate events, which usually is not really during peak wedding season. It's They
Yeah.
usually do those around the holidays or in like the off seasons. So I just think generally people are less busier in the winter or in the early spring. So which is great for me, because it's kind of in the off center of weddings. So I do a lot of corporate ones too.
That actually makes a ton of sense. Does anything strike you as like the most unique event that you've planned before? I mean, actually, that 85th bank anniversary seems fairly unique, but like, is there anything else that might surprise people that you planned, or is it just mostly the normal stuff we've been talking about?
I would say it's mostly the normal stuff that I talk about, but I do have like a sister company that I it's also started during COVID. One of my best friends, she's a photographer, and during that time, we were like, obviously no one was doing events, but we were like, how can we bring, people together in a safe, respectful, way to be able to still interact and still get some content
Mhm.
and get out there. So we kind of crafted up this idea of a content day. So
Mhm.
we were like, well, let's, set up like mock weddings or whatever, we choose to do for an event and, stay the 6 feet apart, make sure we social distance, all of those things. And it was great because it was during the summer. So we could pick like outside venues.
Mhm.
And what we did is we kind of created this day where, professionals could come, photographers, videographers, bloggers, whatever, people were interested. And we set up all these different sets and people would go around and kind of use it as a way to create new things, add things to their portfolio and connect, again, in like a safe way. And we're like, that was really fun. And we are still doing them to this day. I think we've planned about 30 content days over the
That's cool.
last handful of years. And it's grown into like a second business per se. Of course, now, we're both super busy and she's also kind of almost gone full time in her business as well. So we're a little more busier. So we're trying to plan them a little spaced out, but that's
It's a
kind of
good
been
idea.
also something that I've been planning that's really fun that kind of piggybacks on the weddings and events. So that's another thing that I do as well.
And those connections that vendors are be able to make between each other is great. The images and the videos that they walk away with, the venue, like that's
Absolutely.
all great stuff for marketing. I feel like I have a greater awareness of that stuff given the friends I have in the industry of what looks like fake-ish weddings that they use to market.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the other things I noticed on the website is you do bar services.
Yes.
Is that like an aspect of the business, or is that just part of the planning, or is it just like you could someone could reach out to you if they were having a party and they wanted to have someone bartend? Is
Yeah, so I do bartending. And in Maine, like there is so many, I take so many classes and try to get education because serving alcohol is, a big thing and you have to be safe about it and you have to know what you're doing. So I didn't always have this a part of my business, but I added it
Mhm.
on a couple years ago. And I don't have my like food and safety license. So I can't sell alcohol like a restaurant or a catering company could, but I can safely serve it. So the couple would provide the alcohol and we would show up and we would safely serve it to them and we would decorate the bar and pack it up and clean up and things like that. So it's kind of like a service that they can provide all the alcohol. It's kind of like BYOB elevated to a
Yeah.
level. In Maine, people really like that because alcohol is expensive and a lot of people have backyard weddings or they have in their family's barn or under a tent and
Mhm.
there isn't necessarily like a bar set up. So we
Mhm.
I help them rent the bar from a company and then they provide all the alcohol and we come in and serve it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
nice because people can just do it and kind of keep their style, have how they want it and how they want to set up their bar and the decoration. So I added that on a couple years ago. I wouldn't say it's like I do promote it, but my wedding planning is, kind
Of
of at the top
course.
of the
Of
business. But
course.
it's nice because I offer it to the couples that usually have already booked me so that I'm there so I can also monitor that as
Yeah.
well as, my team. So it works really nicely. So
Mhm.
that's why I added it on because a lot of couples want it, but they want me, but I'm like, I can't do that. So that's
Yeah.
why I added it on a couple years ago to kind of help couples just get the all inclusive package.
Makes a ton of sense. And then it seems like separate from all this event stuff, there's also a part of your business that is social media management, content creation. I don't know if that's more your brother Kyle. Talk about that. It does show up on the website as some of the services that you provide.
Yeah, so in the last like few years, I really love doing social media and, connecting with people and advertising. So I take on a couple clients and what I do is help them write their blogs, do their social media posts, do their marketing, things
Mhm.
like that for like business. So it's a lot of times it's like photographers, vendor venues, things like that. So it's not like super huge companies because I don't want to go that extreme, but it's a lot of just like making connections for them and helping them. Social media is like a job in itself. I always say like someday I'm going to hire someone to do my own because I'm not going to like it anymore. Right now I
Yeah.
like it, I enjoy it, but it is a lot to keep up with all the posting and the commenting and the messages and keeping up with all the trends and it's a lot. So I try to help people bridge that and I try to keep up to date with all the trends and a lot of people are like I don't want that. that. I don't want to do that. So can you do that for me? So I take on a few clients here and there and help do that for them. And then the content creation, it's kind of like a new trend that's coming out in the wedding world. I have always done this personally for my clients, or just maybe myself for my own social media. But kind of what it is people don't necessarily want a videographer, but they want a content creator. So what they do is they come in and we just use our iPhones. And you take like raw footage for them of them getting ready, of the decorations being set up, of the entire process. And it's not like a professional video, it's like raw clips, and that's kind of what people are wanting. So I do that when I'm there, just kind of behind the scenes stuff, and I usually send it to them, but people are actually wanting like a package and wanting it to be like an official thing. So I added it on last season to my packages, and we've been booking them like crazy this year. So
It's
it's
incredible.
one of those new trends that people want, and it's kind of fun because you don't have to worry about getting the specific shots. It's just they want the entire day kind of captured how you see it and how you see them. So
And they can do whatever they want with that
yep,
footage.
we send it
Cut it
over, and then
up.
I usually do like a highlight reel or whatever for them on Instagram and post that. But they just kind of get all those photos and videos, and they can do what they want with them.
How do you stay up to date on all that stuff? Is there like blogs that you follow? Is there conferences you go? I mean, I don't even know where to begin.
I know it's a lot, and there's a lot of trends that are coming out every week in the wedding world. And what I what I always kind of say first to clients is it's overwhelming to keep up with all the trends. Like I said, there's new trends coming out every day. I open, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, there's something new. So a lot of people want to incorporate those trends, but I always tell them do what's you, and do what reflects you guys and your personalities and what you want, not necessarily what you feel like you have to do. Like it doesn't have to be that TikTok, that Pinterest wedding that everybody sees, and I think everyone strives for that because they're beautiful, but it doesn't always get executed like that, and it doesn't always look like that. So I tell, my clients, when you're going into it, do what you want, and we'll make that happen. But a lot of trends people do kind of want to incorporate, but I try to do conferences and do like networking events within New England to kind of keep up with that. I try to stay up with TikTok and Pinterest and Instagram and
That's funny.
all
It's
those
crazy to
things.
hear all those things.
I know it's so crazy, but I try to stay up with them. And just because, clients are always bringing it up, and I want to make sure I know what they're talking about. So I try to stay in touch with all of those. And all of us wedding vendors kind of get together usually every month and just have a conversation about what's upcoming. What are you seeing? What's the trends you're seeing? And try to, collaborate, network, and stay up to date for all those trends that are upcoming.
So that kind of leads me to my next thing. How do you market yourself, or how do you get new business? Is it through some key relationships? Is it online? Is it social media? Like, what's the way you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say like in the beginning of my work, I did a lot of like bridal shows, like you were saying, did a lot of ads, newspaper things. And then over the years, it's really a lot of word of mouth in this business. Maine isn't huge. And a lot of people, everyone knows everybody, no matter, kind of what part of Maine you're in. So I think just being in business for the amount of time I've been in is I've been able to build those connections and in those networks. And a lot of it comes from word of mouth, or like I did so and so's wedding and they were there and they loved what they saw or how I interacted with them. And then they hired me, and it just kind of, there's some families that I've done, 10 of their family events or all of their weddings. So it's kind of crazy. It's just like building those relationships. But also, like, I worked really hard to kind of connect with wedding vendors, venues, Airbnbs, all of those things, so that they all kind of know me. They're able to put a name to my face, and kind of when they have people looking, they can reach out to me. So there's that, but also social media. Like there's lots of like groups on Facebook, like wedding groups. And I'd say like that over the last, probably since COVID, because people were home and they were on their phones and on the internet. All of this kind of transpired from that, and a lot of it, and it's free, and people are looking for, planners or DJs, and then we're all in there and we're all tagging everybody. And I would say that's like probably, 90% of, where new referrals come from. If it's not from word of mouth, it's on social media.
I see that in my business. I told you before, I do mortgages outside of all this stuff, and there's a lot of home ownership type groups and people looking for mortgage people referrals, realtor referrals. People are getting tagged all over the place, and it makes sense that the same would be in your industry, especially in your industry. I feel like your industry is very easy to refer. If people had good experiences, like people do want personal referrals for things, so Where like in our business, like buying a home is a very big financial decision, maybe a little bit more pressure. Obviously, wedding is too, but like I just see it being a very easy thing to refer if people have had good experiences. So,
Exactly. Absolutely.
um, what's the best way for people to contact you or find you online?
Yeah, so there, like I said, I have on Facebook, I have Instagram. I like to be like I said, I do this full time. So I'm available to my clients. They can call me, they can text me, they can send me emails. I have all modes of interactions. And
Mhm.
so they can message me on Facebook, on my website. I also have my website. And they can, call, text, email me there. So any of those I'm totally comfortable with.
Website is Kayla's Creations 207 events.com, which I'll put in
Yep.
the description. But I see that you have a junior event planner on there as well.
I do. My daughter, she actually just turned 9 on
Did she-
Sunday, and I was just telling somebody this that they were worried. They were looking to start their own business, and they were like, "I'm really worried that I'm going to take away from my kids, or I'm not going to be able to be home so much." And I had this real conversation with her that I said, my daughter's name is Camber, and there was times when she was younger that I didn't have anybody to watch her. Family and friends on the weekends. People are busy,
Mhm.
people work and have things going on, and there was times where I had to bring her, and it's so funny because she learned some really good life skills, and it was hard, right, to try to work and have your child there, but a lot of times the couples were like, yes, bring them, we want this to be like a family event, we want you to feel
Mhm.
comfortable. So it was nice to have that. It's still nice to have that. Now she's older and she can actually like and do some work when she comes.
Yeah.
But around the holidays at Christmas time, it was so funny. She was at my parents' house and I was, doing something, and I come back and she had set the table all fancy.
Yeah.
She told my mom she wanted to do that because she wanted to be like her mom. So I was telling my friend this, that I was like, do it. If this is something you want to do, your kids will learn and they'll watch you
Mhm.
and they'll come with you and they'll learn some skills that they'll never learn if if you don't give them this opportunity. So I always tell people, if you have kids and you want to start your own business, do it, because you can bring them with you and you can teach them valuable lessons and skills, and it will just be great for everybody.
It's a great time together too. Some great memories. I'm sure
It's
things you can
it's
laugh
some of
about.
our best memories.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's awesome. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, sharing your business. I'll be sure to get this out online, try to create some connections for you. And
Absolutely.
again, I just appreciate the time. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, take same with you, and I appreciate it. And if anyone ever needs any help, reach out, and I'm available and can't wait to party with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kayla. Talk
Thank
soon.
you. Take care.